Poor single dad fixes little girl's tricycle without knowing she was a millionaire's daughter. Michael Johnson gripped the screwdriver tightly as he tried to fix the problem with his son's bicycle rear wheel. The afternoon sun beat down hard on the park bench where he sat, using the last tools he had left after selling nearly everything to pay the overdue rent. His financial situation was desperate, and each day that passed without finding work at the auto shop made everything harder. That's when he heard soft crying behind him. Turning around, he saw a little blonde girl no older than 3, wearing a pristine white dress, trying to push a red tricycle that clearly had issues. Tears streamed down her face as she stared at the toy as if it were her greatest broken treasure. "Hi, Princess. What happened to your tricycle?" Michael asked, setting his tools aside and moving closer. The girl looked up at him with tear-filled blue eyes, pointing at the front wheel, which was completely bent. "It's broken," she said in a whiny voice. "Aunt Jennifer left me alone, said it wasn't her problem." Michael's heart clenched. How could a nanny abandon such a small child in the park? He looked around for any responsible adult, but saw no one who seemed to be searching for her. "Where's your mommy?" he asked, crouching to her height. "Mommy's traveling again. Grandma Maggie's at home, but she doesn't know I left." The girl sniffled. "Can you fix my tricycle, please?" Michael glanced at the red tricycle. It was clearly expensive, probably worth more than he made in 2 months when he still had a job. But seeing the little girl cry stirred something deep inside him. His own son, Ethan, 8 years old, was at school right then, and Michael knew well how devastating it was for a child to have a broken toy. "Of course, Princess. What's your name?" "Lily," she answered, wiping her nose with the back of her tiny hand. "Nice to meet you, Lily. I'm Uncle Michael. Let's see what happened here." Michael picked up his tools and began examining the tricycle. The front wheel had come off the axle, likely after a bump. Nothing that couldn't be fixed with care and patience. As he worked, Lily sat beside him on the bench, watching every move with curiosity. "You're just like my daddy," she said suddenly. "He knew how to fix things too." Michael paused for a second. The way she spoke in the past tense puzzled him, but he decided not to ask. Little kids sometimes mixed up their words. "Your daddy must be really smart then," he replied, going back to work. "Daddy went on a trip far away and never came back," Lily said, swinging her little legs. "Grandma Maggie said he went to heaven, but I don't understand why he didn't take me with him." Michael's heart broke. The girl had lost her father. Now he understood why she seemed so starved for male attention. He kept working quietly, thinking how devastating it would be for Ethan if something happened to him. "All done, Princess," he announced, setting the tricycle down. "Let's test it." Lily's eyes lit up. She hopped off the bench and climbed onto the tricycle, pedaling a few feet with a huge smile on her face. She rushed back and hugged Michael's legs tightly. "Thank you, Uncle Michael. You're the best in the world." Michael felt his eyes well up. It had been a long time since someone called him the best at anything. Lately, all he heard were criticisms about failing to support his family properly. "Lily Grace Bennett, where are you?" A woman's voice echoed through the park, clearly frantic. Michael saw an elegant lady around 60 years old running toward them. The woman wore expensive clothes and had well-kept grey hair, but her face showed pure desperation. "Grandma Maggie," Lily shouted, waving. "Lily." The lady arrived breathless, immediately scooping Lily into her arms. "Good heavens, child, you scared me to death. How could you leave the house without telling me?" Then she looked at Michael suspiciously. "Who are you, sir?" "Ma'am, I was just helping the girl with her tricycle," Michael explained, quickly putting away his tools. "She said her nanny had left and she was all alone." "That incompetent Jennifer," the lady muttered. "This is the 3rd nanny this month." She turned her attention back to Michael. "Did you fix the tricycle?" "Yes, ma'am. The wheel was off its axle." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now back to the story. The woman whom Michael assumed was Lily's grandmother watched as the tricycle worked perfectly. She opened the expensive purse she was carrying. "How much do I owe you for the repair?" "Nothing, ma'am. It was just a favor," Michael replied, his pride stung by the implication that he was doing it for money. "I insist on paying. You're clearly a professional." "I said I don't want anything," Michael repeated, firmer this time. "I just wanted to help the girl." Mrs. Margaret, as Lily called her, studied Michael for a few seconds. There was something about him that intrigued her. His refusal of money had been genuine, not an act. "Very well. Thank you for your kindness." She turned to Lily. "Let's go home, young lady. Your mother will have a fit when she finds out you ran off." "But I want to stay with Uncle Michael," Lily protested. "He's as nice as my daddy." "Lily, don't bother the man. He must have important things to do." Michael saw sadness return to the little girl's face and felt a pang in his chest. "Actually, I come here every day with my son, Ethan. If you'll allow it, Lily can play with us whenever she likes." Mrs. Margaret hesitated. There was something about this man that puzzled her. He was clearly poor. His worn clothes and old tools didn't lie, but he treated Lily with a kindness she rarely saw. "Perhaps, if it's no trouble for you." "No trouble at all." "Then it's settled. I'll bring Lily back tomorrow at the same time." The next day, Michael was at the park with Ethan when he saw Mrs. Margaret arriving with Lily. The girl ran toward him with her tricycle. "Uncle Michael, look, I brought my tricycle to play." Ethan, who was shy by nature, watched the girl curiously. Michael had told him about their encounter the day before, and the boy was eager to meet the Tricycle Princess, as he'd nicknamed Lily. "Ethan, this is Lily. Lily, this is my son, Ethan." "Hi," Ethan said timidly. "Hi? Want to ride my tricycle?" Lily offered immediately. Michael watched as the two began playing together, feeling a strange sense of fulfillment. Mrs. Margaret approached and sat beside him on the bench. "Are you a widower?" she asked bluntly. "I'm a single father. Ethan's mother left us when he was 2. "I'm sorry." "And Lily? Where's her mother?" Mrs. Margaret sighed deeply. "Grace works too much. She's a businesswoman, runs a construction company she inherited from her husband. Ever since my son-in-law passed, she's buried herself in work and hardly sees her daughter." "That must be hard for the girl." "It is. Lily barely talks to adults. Only me and apparently you." She looked at Michael curiously. "May I ask what you do for work?" Michael's face warmed with shame. "I'm a mechanic, or I was. I've been unemployed for 3 months. The shop where I worked closed." "I see." Mrs. Margaret showed no judgment, only understanding. "It must be hard raising a child alone." "Yeah, but we manage. Ethan is a good boy, doesn't give me any trouble." The two watched the children play. Lily had insisted Ethan ride the tricycle, and now they were taking turns laughing together. It was a touching scene. 2 children from completely different worlds connecting through the innocence of childhood. "Lily was saying you remind her of her father," Mrs. Margaret commented. "She mentioned it yesterday. Said he knew how to fix things." "That's true. David was always good with his hands, built a company from scratch, started as a laborer and became one of the most respected builders in town." Michael felt a pang of admiration and envy. What would it be like to have built something like that to leave for his son? In the following days, their meetings at the park became routine. Michael started bringing some simple tools, and Lily always showed up with some broken toy for him to fix. Mrs. Margaret watched from a distance, noticing how her granddaughter blossomed under the male attention. One afternoon, as Michael was fixing one of Lily's dolls, Ethan approached. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Of course, son. Why does Lily have so many expensive toys and we don't?" Michael paused what he was doing. It was a tough but honest question. "Because her family has more money than we do, Ethan. But that doesn't make her better or worse than you. People are special because of what's in their hearts, not their pockets." "I know, Dad. I was just curious. Lily's nice, even if she's rich." Michael smiled. His son was learning valuable lessons about empathy and judgment. "What I like most about her is that she shares everything with me," Ethan continued. "Yesterday she gave me half her snack because she saw mine was small." Michael's heart clenched. He did his best to make sure Ethan never went hungry, but he knew sometimes their meals were more modest than he'd like. "Did you thank her?" "Of course. And I promised that when we have money again, I'll buy her a snack too." Michael hugged his son tightly. "Son, even through hardships, Ethan was growing up with strong values. 2 weeks after their first meetings, Michael was at the park alone. Ethan had gotten sick and had to miss school. He didn't expect Lily to show up without Ethan to play with, but the girl came running with Mrs. Margaret close behind. "Where's Ethan?" Lily asked, looking around. "He's a little sick today, sweetheart. He's at home resting." Lily's face immediately fell. "Will he be okay?" "Yeah, it's just a cold. He'll be better tomorrow." "Grandma Maggie, can we take some medicine to Ethan?" Mrs. Margaret stepped closer, concerned. "Is the boy very sick?" "No, Ma'am. Just a little flu. But thank you for worrying." "Can you afford to take him to the doctor if needed?" Michael hesitated. The truth was, he didn't have money for a private doctor, and the clinic was always overcrowded. "If it gets bad, we'll go to the clinic." Mrs. Margaret understood without him having to explain. "I know a very good pediatrician. If you'll allow me, I can call him." Michael's pride clashed with his worry for his son. "I can't accept that, ma'am. You've already been too kind to us." "Mr. Michael, let a grandmother care for a child. Lily has grown very attached to Ethan. To her, he's like a brother." Michael looked at Lily, who was holding his hand and staring at him expectantly. "Uncle Michael, please let Grandma Maggie help Ethan. I get really sad when my friends are sick. How could he refuse such a sincere request? All right, but only if it's really necessary." Mrs. Margaret smiled and reached for her phone. Later that day, the private pediatrician showed up at the modest home where Michael lived with Ethan. It was a small apartment in an old building, but clean and tidy. The doctor examined Ethan and confirmed it was just a cold, but prescribed some medication to help with his recovery. When Michael tried to ask about the cost of the visit, the doctor said it had already been paid. Michael felt embarrassed but grateful. The next day, Lily showed up at the park with a bag of medicine and fruit. "This is to help Ethan get strong," she announced, handing the bag to Michael. "Lily, this is too much. Grandma Maggie said that when we care about someone, we take care of them. I really like you and Ethan." Michael felt his eyes well up. There was something deeply touching about the child's natural generosity. 2 hours later, while the kids were playing, Mrs. Margaret approached Michael. "May I ask you a personal question?" "Of course." "Do you have family here in town? Relatives who could help in difficult times?" Michael hesitated. "My family situation is complicated. My parents rejected me when they found out I was going to be a single father. They thought I'd gotten involved with the wrong person and was dishonoring the family. I'm sorry to hear that. It is what it is." Michael shrugged, but Mrs. Margaret could see the pain behind his apparent indifference. "What about your in-laws, Ethan's mother's family?" Amanda never talked about her family. When she left, she just disappeared. "Ethan sometimes asks about his mum, but I have no information to give him." Mrs. Margaret grew thoughtful. "It must be very hard raising a child completely alone." "Yeah, but Ethan is worth every sacrifice." At that moment, Ethan came running over, already recovered from his cold. "Dad, Lily was telling me her mum is coming back from her trip tomorrow." Michael glanced at Mrs. Margaret, who seemed tense. "It's true. Grace is returning tomorrow from a 3-week business trip." "Is Lily excited?" "She is, but also nervous. Grace always comes back more stressed from her trips, and when she finds out Lily left the house to come to the park..." Mrs. Margaret didn't finish the sentence, but Michael understood. "Do you think she'll forbid them from seeing each other?" "I hope not. Lily has never been as happy and social as she has these past few days, but Grace is very protective and distrustful." Michael felt a tightness in his chest. Lily had become important to him and Ethan. The thought of not seeing her again was painful. "If her mother doesn't want us to meet, I'll understand. We'll see what happens." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. The next day, Michael was at the park with Ethan when he saw an elegant woman approaching quickly. She wore an expensive suit and carried a briefcase, clearly coming straight from work. Her blonde hair was pulled into a perfect bun, and her blue eyes, just like Lily's, showed a mix of exhaustion and irritation. "Where is my daughter?" she asked Michael directly, without even introducing herself. "Hi, Mom." Lily shouted, running toward her. "Look what Uncle Michael fixed for me." Grace Bennet glanced at the tricycle, then at Michael, then at Mrs. Margaret, who was hurrying over. "Mom, what is this? Who is this man? And why is my daughter calling him Uncle?" "Grace, calm down, let me explain," said Mrs. Margaret. "I want an explanation now. I come back from an exhausting work trip and find my daughter hanging out in the park with a complete stranger." Michael stood up, sensing the tension in the air. "Mom, I can explain." "You weren't asked." Grace cut him off sharply. "Mom, how could you allow this?" "Grace Bennet, lower your voice," said Mrs. Margaret firmly. "This gentleman helped your daughter when she was alone in the park, abandoned by the irresponsible nanny you hired. That doesn't give him the right to—" "Mommy, don't fight with Uncle Michael," interrupted Lily, positioning herself protectively in front of Michael. "He's as good as Daddy was." Grace froze. Her daughter's comparison hit hard. "Lily, go with Grandma to the car now." "But Mommy—" "Now, Lily." The girl started crying but obeyed. Ethan, who had been watching the scene, approached his father. "Dad, did we do something wrong?" he whispered, confused and scared by the situation. "No, son, sometimes adults get worried and react badly." Grace waited until Lily and Mrs. Margaret had walked away before turning back to Michael. "I don't know what your intentions are, but I want you to stay away from my daughter, immediately." "Ma'am, I never had any intention other than helping a child in need." "Of course, and I suppose my mother's generosity toward you has nothing to do with it." Michael felt his blood boil. "Are you implying I approached your daughter for financial gain?" "I'm just being realistic. Men in your situation often see opportunities in families like ours. You don't know me well enough to speak about my situation or my character. I know enough. I know you're unemployed, live in a small apartment downtown, and suddenly became very close to a wealthy family." Michael was shocked. Grace had investigated his life. "How did you—" "I always look into people who get close to my family. It's a matter of safety." Ethan tugged at his father's shirt, clearly frightened by the argument. "Dad, can we go?" Michael looked at his son, then at Grace. "You can rest easy. We won't bother you anymore." "Dad, but what about Lily?" asked Ethan as they walked away. "Lily has her own life, son, and we have ours." But Ethan didn't understand. He had grown attached to the girl, and the sudden separation left him confused and sad. For 3 days, Michael avoided the park. He took Ethan to play in a smaller playground across town, but the boy was visibly downcast. "Dad, why can't we see Lily anymore?" Ethan asked on the 3rd night. "Son, sometimes people from different worlds can't be friends." "But why? Lily was nice and she liked us." Michael didn't know how to explain an adult's prejudices and fears to an 8-year-old. "It's complicated, Ethan. I wanted to say goodbye to her and give her a drawing I made." Michael looked at the drawing Ethan had made. Him, Michael and Lily, playing in the park, all smiling. His heart ached. On the 4th day, Michael decided to return to the old park. Not to see Lily. He would respect her mother's decision, but because it was closest to Ethan's school and he needed to save on transportation. To his surprise, when they arrived, Lily was there with Mrs. Margaret. The girl sat on a bench, clearly sad, not touching the tricycle parked beside her. When she saw Michael and Ethan, her eyes lit up and she ran toward them. "Uncle Michael, Ethan, you came back." Michael glanced around for Grace but didn't see her. "Hi, sweetheart. How are you?" "Sad. Mommy said you couldn't be my friends anymore." Ethan stepped forward and handed Lily the drawing. "I made this for you, but I thought I'd never see you again." Lily looked at the drawing and started crying. "It's us playing together. I want it to stay like that." Mrs. Margaret approached, looking weary. "Mr. Michael, I need to speak with you." They stepped slightly away from the children. "How is Lily?" asked Michael. "Devastated. She hasn't been eating properly, hasn't been sleeping well. All she asks is when she'll see you again." "And Grace?" "My daughter is convinced you're an opportunist. Nothing I say changes her mind." Michael sighed. "Maybe she's right to be cautious. I can't blame her for protecting her daughter. But you're not an opportunist, are you?" "Mrs. Margaret, I swear on my son's life that I never approached Lily out of self-interest. She reminds me so much of Ethan when he was little. I just wanted to help." Mrs. Margaret studied him for a long moment. "I believe you. And because of that, I'll tell you something that might change everything." Michael waited. "Grace isn't just being protective, she's afraid." "Afraid of what?" "Afraid of getting attached. You remind Lily of her father, but you also remind Grace of her husband. David had the same gentle way, the same patience with children. When Grace saw you with Lily, she probably relived painful memories. Michael hadn't considered that possibility. Does she still love her husband very much?" "She does, and she blames herself. David died in a work accident. Grace thinks if she'd been a better wife, if she hadn't argued with him that morning, maybe things would have been different." "What kind of argument?" Mrs. Margaret hesitated. "Grace wanted David to stop working directly on construction sites. The company was big enough for him to just manage, but David loved being hands-on, working with his tools. They had a terrible fight that morning. Those were the last words they exchanged." Michael felt a pang of empathy for Grace. Losing someone after an argument must be devastating. Is that why she buried herself in work? Exactly. And why she's so afraid of getting close to anyone again. When she saw how attached Lily became to you, she panicked. I understand, but that doesn't change the fact that she doesn't want me near her daughter. Maybe it could if you're patient. Michael watched Lily and Ethan playing together, both visibly happy to be reunited. "Mrs. Margaret, I don't want to cause trouble for your family. If Grace thinks it's best we stay apart, maybe she's right. And do you think it's right to deprive two children of a genuine friendship because of adults' fears?" Michael had no answer. "What do you suggest?" "That you be patient, keep coming to the park when you can. If Grace shows up and makes a scene, be respectful but don't back away. Show her who you really are. And if that doesn't work, at least we'll know we tried." Just then, Lily ran up to them. He ran. "Grandma Maggie, can I take Ethan to see the ducklings at the pond?" "You may, but don't go too far." As the children ran off, Mrs. Margaret continued, "Mr. Michael, may I ask you a personal question?" "Of course." "Have you ever been married?" "No. Ethan was born from a relationship that didn't work out. His mother left when she realized being a mother was harder than she'd imagined." "And your parents? Did they really reject you?" Michael sighed heavily. "My parents were always very strict about doing things the right way. When I told them I'd gotten my girlfriend pregnant out of wedlock, they were furious. When Amanda left and I said I'd raise Ethan alone, they said it was the consequence of my bad choices and they wouldn't help." "How sad. And you never tried to reconcile?" "I did a few times, but they made it clear they'd only take me back if I gave up Ethan for adoption and started over the right way." Mrs. Margaret was shocked. "How could they suggest such a thing? They think a single man can't raise a child properly, that Ethan would be better off with a real family. And you never considered it?" Michael looked at her sternly. "Never. Ethan is my life. I'd rather struggle with him than live comfortably without him. I can imagine. When I look at you two, I see the genuine love between a father and son." Michael smiled. "Ethan is a gift. Even though he came from a complicated situation, he gave my life meaning. Have you ever thought about remarrying, giving Ethan a mother?" "I have, but so far, I haven't found anyone who loves Ethan as I do, and I won't bring someone into our lives just for convenience." Mrs. Margaret was impressed by Michael's maturity. "You're a man of integrity, Mr. Johnson. It's a shame my daughter can't see that. She's protecting Lily the way she thinks is best. I can't blame her for that." At that moment, the children came running back, excited. "Dad, the ducklings were swimming with their babies," Ethan said. "And one baby was lost, but the mama duck went to get him," Lily added. Michael and Mrs. Margaret exchanged a meaningful glance. Sometimes, children spoke profound truths without realizing it. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. For 2 weeks, the park meetings continued. Mrs. Margaret always brought Lily, and Michael showed up with Ethan. The children played happily while the adults talked about life. During that time, Michael learned more about the Bennett family. Mrs. Margaret shared that Grace had built her late husband's company after his passing, turning it into one of the most respected construction firms in the city. But professional success hadn't filled the personal void. Grace works 16 hours a day, Mrs. Margaret said. She comes home when Lily is already asleep and leaves before she wakes up. I've practically raised my granddaughter alone these past 2 years. It must be hard for Lily to understand why her mother is always absent. It is. She always asks if she did something wrong for her mom not to want to play with her. Michael's heart ached. He knew well the pain of a child who felt rejected by their parents. And Grace, how does she handle it? She blames herself, but doesn't know how to change. She says she works so much to secure Lily's future, but really she's running from the pain of being home and feeling her husband's absence. Michael began to understand Grace better. She wasn't just an arrogant woman protecting her fortune, she was a grieving widow trying to survive her loss. On a rainy Thursday, Michael was at the park alone. Ethan had stayed at school for a special project, and he decided to use the free time to think. He didn't expect anyone because of the rain, but to his surprise, he saw Grace walking toward him. She wore a simple coat and looked different, less like an executive, more human. Her hair was down and she wasn't carrying her work bag. "May I sit?" she asked as she approached. "Of course," Michael replied, surprised by her politeness. They sat in silence for a few minutes, watching the rain. "My mother told me some things about your story," Grace finally said. "Oh." "She said you've been raising your son alone for years." "That's true." "It must be hard." Michael glanced at her. There was something different about Grace, a vulnerability she hadn't shown before. "Sometimes it is, but Ethan is worth every sacrifice. My daughter won't stop talking about you and Ethan. They're two special kids. They connected quickly." Grace sighed. "I don't know how to be a mother, Mr. Johnson." The confession caught him off guard. "What do you mean?" "Lily was 2 when David passed. I was so focused on saving the company, on making sure we didn't lose everything, that by the time I realized it, my daughter had grown up, and I was a stranger to her." Michael saw tears forming in Grace's eyes. "It's not too late to change that. I don't know where to start. When I get home, Lily is asleep. When I wake up, she's still asleep. On weekends, I'm so exhausted I barely have the energy to play with her." "Why do you work so much?" Grace stayed silent for a long moment. "Because when I stop working, I have to face the silence of the house. And in the silence, I remember David isn't there anymore." Michael understood. Grace was using work to escape the pain. "Do you think I'm a terrible mother?" she asked, turning to look at him. "I think you're a mother who's hurting and doesn't know how to handle it. My mother told me you lost your parents too, by their choice." "That's true." "How do you deal with rejection?" Michael thought before answering. "At first it was very hard. I felt alone and like a failure. But then I realized Ethan needed all of me, not a bitter father. So I decided we'd build our own family, even if it was just the 2 of us." "And the loneliness? How do you handle that?" "Ethan fills most of it. And when I'm truly alone, I remember I chose this out of love. I'd rather be alone doing the right thing than with someone doing the wrong thing." Grace absorbed his words. "Lily told me you fix things. I'm a mechanic. Or I was. She said you fix toys, but I think you fix more than that." Michael didn't understand where she was going with this. "What do you mean?" "My daughter started smiling again after she met you. She started talking about having friends again. She started shining again. Lily is a special girl. She just needed attention, which I wasn't giving her. You were doing the best you could under the circumstances." Grace looked at him with gratitude. "You're very kind to someone I treated so poorly. You were protecting your daughter. Any parent would understand that. But I was wrong about your intentions, wasn't I?" Michael hesitated. "Grace, I can swear I never approached Lily out of self-interest. She reminded me so much of Ethan when he was little and needed affection. I know, My mother made me see that. They fell silent again. Michael, can I ask you a favor? Of course. Could you teach me how to play with my daughter? The question was so unexpected that Michael looked at her in surprise. What do you mean? I don't know how to play, I never did. My parents were very serious, and I was always too responsible as a child. When I became a mother, I tried playing with Lily a few times, but I felt ridiculous and awkward. Michael was moved by Grace's vulnerability. Playing is simpler than you think. For you, maybe. But I see how Lily lights up when she's with you and how withdrawn she is with me. Do you really want to learn? I do. I don't want to miss any more of my daughter's childhood. Michael smiled. Then let's start tomorrow. Bring Lily to the park and I'll show you some simple games. You'd do that? Even after how I treated you? I would. For Lily. And because I think every child deserves to have their mother present. Grace began to cry silently. Thank you, I don't deserve your kindness. Everyone deserves a second chance, Grace. The next day, Grace showed up at the park with Lily, who beamed when she saw Michael and Ethan. Uncle Michael, Mommy said she's going to play with us today. Michael looked at Grace, who seemed nervous but determined. That's right, sweetheart. Your mom wants to learn some new games. That's so cool. What are we going to play? Michael thought of something simple to start. How about a crab walk race? The kids loved the idea, but Grace seemed confused. What's a crab walk race? Michael demonstrated. He sat on the ground, placed his hands behind his back, and began moving backward with his belly up. Like this, it's a different kind of race. Lily and Ethan were already laughing and trying to copy him. Grace hesitated, looking at her work clothes. I can't. I'm dressed for work. Mommy, please, Lily begged. Grace looked at her daughter, then at Michael, who encouraged her with a glance. Finally, she sat on the ground and tried the position. The first attempts were disastrous. Grace kept falling, getting mixed up, laughing at herself. But with each try, Lily grew more excited. Mommy's learning! Mommy's playing with me! By the end, Grace's clothes were dirty and her hair was messy, but she was genuinely smiling. That was fun, she admitted, seeming surprised at herself. Mommy was cool playing, Lily said, hugging her. Michael watched the scene with a smile. Grace had taken the first step. In the following days, their park meetups became playtime lessons. Michael taught simple games, and Grace gradually loosened up. Lily was over the moon with her mother's attention. A week later, during a game of hide-and-seek, Grace hid behind a tree with Lily. Michael could hear them giggling softly, whispering about where to hide. It was a beautiful sound, mother and daughter connecting through play. When Ethan found them, Lily shouted, "Mommy's good at hide-and-seek." Grace beamed. It was clear she was rediscovering the joy of being a mother. After the kids ran off to play, Grace approached Michael. Thank you for teaching me this. You're doing great. You know what's strange? I'd forgotten how good it feels to laugh. Really laugh, not that forced chuckle from work meetings. Kids have that power. They remind us how to be simple and genuine. Mr. Michael, can I ask you something? Of course. Did you never want to build a career? Have bigger ambitions? Michael thought about the question. I do have ambitions. I want to raise Ethan to be a good man. I want him to be happy and honest. I want to provide for our family with dignity. To me, that's success. But don't you want to be rich, have power? Money would be nice to give Ethan more comfort. But power? I don't know if that's for me. I'd rather be important to a few people than famous to many. Grace grew thoughtful. I always thought success was measured by the company, the money, the recognition. But watching you with Ethan, I see a different kind of success. What kind? The success of being truly loved. Ethan looks at you like you're a hero, not because of what you have, but because of who you are. Michael smiled. That's the greatest success a father can have. And Lily's starting to look at me that way too, thanks to you. No, thanks to you for having the courage to change. Just then, Lily ran up to them. Mommy, Uncle Michael, can I ask something? Of course, sweetheart, they answered together. Why doesn't Ethan have a mommy and I don't have a daddy? Wouldn't it be nice if we were a family? Michael and Grace exchanged glances, unsure how to respond. Lily, families are complicated, Grace finally said. But I like Uncle Michael and Ethan, and I think you like us too. We do, sweetheart, Michael confirmed. But being a family is more complicated than just liking each other. Why? Lily pressed with childlike logic. Michael and Grace looked at each other again, both at a loss. It was Ethan who answered, walking up to the group. Lily, my dad says family isn't just about who lives in the same house. Family is who truly cares, and you care about us, so we're already kind of like family. The child's simple wisdom left the adults emotional. Ethan is right, said Grace, her voice trembling. You're already family to us. That night, Grace called Michael. Hello? Mr. Johnson, it's Grace. Hi, Grace, everything okay? Lily won't stop talking about being a family, and I wanted to invite you both to dinner at our place tomorrow. Michael was surprised. Are you sure? I am. I think it's time for Lily to show Ethan her home, and I'd like to get to know you better outside the park. It would be an honor. Great. I'll text you the address. The next day, Michael and Ethan arrived at the Bennett family home. It was an elegant mansion in an upscale neighborhood, but Grace greeted them at the door herself, dressed casually. Welcome, she said, more relaxed than Michael had ever seen her. Wow, Dad. Lily's house is huge, Ethan whispered, impressed. Lily came running in. Ethan, come see my room, it has a slide. The kids raced upstairs, leaving Michael and Grace alone in the living room. Your home is beautiful, Michael remarked. Thank you. David designed everything. He wanted it to feel like a home, not just an expensive house. Michael noticed photos of her late husband scattered around the room. He was a handsome man with a gentle smile. He seemed like a good man. He was. David was everything I'm not. Spontaneous, affectionate, playful. He balanced out my shortcomings. You don't have shortcomings. You were just lost for a while. Grace smiled sadly. Mr. Johnson, can I tell you something I've never told anyone? Of course. The day David passed, we had a terrible fight. I was pregnant again, but I lost the baby the week before because of work stress. I had a doctor's appointment that day, and David wanted to come with me, but I said horrible things to him. Michael waited, sensing Grace needed to unburden herself. I told him he didn't understand the pressure I was under, that he was irresponsible for wanting more kids when we could barely take care of Lily. I said he only cared about fun while I carried all the responsibility. And what did he say? He tried to calm me down, said we'd talk that night when I was calmer. He kissed my forehead and told me he loved me, even when I was impossible. Those were his last words to me. Grace began to cry. If I hadn't fought with him, maybe he wouldn't have been distracted at work. Maybe the accident wouldn't have happened. Michael stepped closer and placed a hand on her shoulder. Grace, accidents happen. It wasn't your fault. But it was. And now Lily is growing up without a father because of my bitterness. No, Lily is growing up with a mother who's learned to forgive herself and love better. That's a gift. Grace looked at Michael through her tears. How are you so wise? I'm not wise. I've just learned that carrying guilt doesn't bring anyone back, but it can destroy those who are still here. Just then, the kids came running downstairs. Dad, Lily's room is as big as our whole apartment, Ethan said excitedly. And Ethan said you make pizza at home every Friday. Can I make pizza with you? Lily asked. Michael and Grace exchanged glances. If your mom says yes, Michael began. Of course you can, Grace said immediately. In fact, why don't we make pizza here tonight? Yes! Both kids shouted together. As they prepared the pizza dough, Michael watched Grace interact with the kids. She seemed different, lighter, more present. The children naturally included her in their play, and she responded with growing ease. Uncle Michael, can you teach Mommy how to toss the dough in the air? Lily asked. That might be dangerous, sweetheart. Please, insisted Ethan and Lily together. Michael looked at Grace, who nodded with amusement. All right, but be careful. He stood behind Grace, guiding her hands as she tried to roll the dough. When she finally succeeded, the children clapped. I did it! I did! Grace shouted, beaming like a child. Michael laughed, realizing how close she was. For a moment their eyes met, and something passed between them, something that went beyond friendship. After dinner, the children went to play in the living room, while Michael and Grace cleaned the kitchen. "Thank you for today," Grace said. "It's been years since I've had this much fun at home." "It was great. The kids loved it." "So did I." They finished cleaning in comfortable silence. "Michael," Grace began, then stopped. "What is it?" "Nothing. It's just, you remind me that I'm still capable of being happy." Michael felt his heart race. "You always were. You just forgot." When Michael and Ethan left that night, Lily hugged them tightly. "Will you come back tomorrow?" she asked. "We have school tomorrow, Princess. But we'll see you at the park afterward. Promise?" "I promise." On the way home, Ethan was excited. "Dad, Grace is nice when she's not mad." "She is. And Lily's like a little sister." Michael smiled. "Would you like to have a little sister?" "I would." "And would you like to have a wife?" The question caught Michael off guard. "Why do you ask?" "Because you look at Grace the same way you look at me when I'm sick, with love." Michael realized his 8-year-old son was more observant than he thought. "It's complicated, Ethan." "Why do adults always say things are complicated? To me, it seems simple. You like each other. We like being a family, so why not be a real family?" Michael had no answer for that childlike logic. In the days that followed, their meetings grew more frequent. Grace started showing up at the park every day, sometimes leaving work early. Michael noticed the change and felt increasingly confused about his own feelings. One Saturday afternoon, Mrs. Margaret appeared at the park alone. "Where are Grace and Lily?" Michael asked. "Lily's taking a nap, and Grace is in an important meeting with investors. She asked me to come talk to you." "About what?" "About how you feel about my daughter." Michael flushed. "Mrs. Margaret." "Mr. Michael, I'm a 70-year-old woman. I've seen a lot in life, and I can recognize when two people are falling in love, even if they won't admit it." "I don't." "You can't deny you feel something for Grace, and she definitely feels something for you." Michael sighed. "Even if that were true, our situation is too complicated." "Why?" "We're from different worlds. She's a millionaire businesswoman. I'm an unemployed mechanic. She can give Lily everything. I can barely support Ethan properly." "Do you think money is what matters in a relationship?" "No, but reality does. Grace deserves someone in her same social standing. Let me tell you something about Grace you might not know." Michael waited. Before she met David, Grace only dated wealthy men. They were all boring, greedy, or arrogant. David was a construction worker when they met. Her parents were against the relationship, but she chose him because she saw something money couldn't buy: integrity and genuine love. But David built an empire. He did, but when they married, he was just a hard-working man who loved Grace for who she was, not what she had, and she loved that about him. Michael absorbed the information. "What are you saying?" "That Grace doesn't need more money. She needs someone who loves her and loves Lily genuinely. Someone who makes her remember who she really is beneath all that corporate armor." "And you think that someone is me?" "I believe you've already proven to be that person. The question is, are you willing to accept it?" Michael fell silent, thinking. "Mrs. Margaret, even if I wanted to try something with Grace, how could I give her and Lily the comfort they deserve?" "Mr. Michael, you're already giving them what they need most: your presence, affection, and emotional stability. The rest are just details." "But I don't even have a job." "That can change. Grace mentioned she needs to hire a maintenance manager for the construction sites, someone who understands mechanics and is trustworthy." Michael was surprised. "She said that?" "She did. And she also mentioned it would be perfect if it was someone she knew personally and could trust with the workers' safety." "Is she offering me a job out of pity?" "She's offering an opportunity because she recognizes your competence." "There's a difference." Michael grew thoughtful. "What if it doesn't work out? What if I ruin the friendship we've built? What if it does work? What if you can build a happy family for those two kids who already love each other like siblings? At that moment, Ethan came running over. "Dad, where's Lily?" "She's at home taking a nap, son." "Oh." Ethan looked disappointed. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Are you and Grace going to date?" Michael nearly choked. "Why do you ask that?" "Because when you're together, you both smile like goofballs. And yesterday, when she was teaching you how to do that thing with the pizza dough, you kept looking at each other like in the movies." Mrs. Margaret laughed. "See? Even the kids notice." Michael was embarrassed, but Ethan wasn't finished. "Dad, I really want Grace to be part of our family. She's cool, and Lily is like my little sister, and you're happier when you're with them." "Ethan, and I think Lily and Grace are happier when they're with us too." Mrs. Margaret stood up. "Well, Mr. Michael, I think I've said all I needed to say. The rest is up to you." She started to walk away, but stopped. "Oh, and Mr. Michael, Grace is planning to invite you over for dinner again tomorrow. Maybe it's a good chance for an honest talk." After Mrs. Margaret left, Michael stayed in the park with Ethan, thinking about everything he'd heard. "Dad, are you worried?" Ethan asked. "A little, son." "Why?" "Because sometimes when we care about someone a lot, we're afraid of ruining everything. But if you don't try, you'll never know if it could work." Michael looked at his son, impressed by his wisdom. "When did you get so smart?" "I learned from you, Dad. You always teach me that the best things in life are worth the risk." Michael smiled and hugged Ethan. "You're right. The best things are worth the risk." That night, Michael barely slept. He kept thinking about his conversation with Mrs. Margaret, Ethan's words, and most of all, Grace. When had he started falling for her? It had been gradual, beginning with admiration for her dedication in learning how to play with Lily, turning into respect for her vulnerability when she opened up about David, and now what he felt was a deep desire to be by her side, to protect her, to build something lasting together. The next day, Michael and Ethan arrived at Grace's house right on time. Lily greeted them with her usual cheerfulness, but Michael noticed Grace seemed nervous. During dinner, the conversation flowed naturally, but Michael sensed tension in the air. Grace was quieter than usual, and he suspected Mrs. Margaret had spoken to her, too. After the kids went off to play, Grace turned to Michael. "Michael, I need to talk to you about something." "About what?" "About us." Michael's heart raced. "What about us?" Grace took a deep breath. I know our situation is complicated. I know we come from different worlds, that we have complex histories, but I can't pretend anymore that I don't feel anything for you." Michael was surprised by Grace's direct honesty. "Grace, let me finish, please." She was clearly nervous but determined. "Since David left, I thought I'd never be able to fall in love again. I thought I didn't deserve happiness after how I treated him that last day. But you reminded me of who I was before pain took over my life." Michael wanted to say something, but she continued. "You taught me how to play with my daughter. You showed me I could still laugh genuinely. You made me feel like I could be a good mother. And more than that, you made me feel like I could be a good woman again. Grace, I know I can't compete with your independence. I know you built a beautiful life with Ethan on your own, and maybe you don't need me. But I need you to know that you and Ethan have become the most important people in my life besides Lily." Michael stood up and moved closer to her. "Grace, do you really think I don't need you?" She looked at him hopefully. "Do you?" "I need you more than you can imagine." Michael took her hands. "Do you think I didn't fall for you too? That I don't get anxious every day waiting for the moment I can come here? That I don't lie awake thinking about what it would be like to wake up beside you every morning?" Grace's eyes filled with tears. "Then why didn't you say anything?" "Because I'm afraid I won't be enough for you. Because I don't want you to regret choosing a man who can't give you the comfort you deserve." "Michael, look around." Grace gestured to the luxurious house. "I have all the material comfort anyone could want. But do you know what I didn't have? Someone who loved me for who I am, not what I have. Someone who made me want to be a better person. Someone who treated my daughter as if she were their own." Michael stepped even closer. And you think I'm that person? I'm sure you are. The question is, do you think I can be the woman you and Ethan deserve? Michael kissed her softly. I'm sure you already are. When they pulled apart, Grace was smiling through her tears. So what do we do now? Now we build a family. Slowly, with patience, respecting everyone's time, including the kids, especially the kids. At that moment, they heard laughter coming from the living room. They went to see what was happening and found Ethan and Lily playing house. I'm the daddy, you're the mommy, and the doll is our baby, Ethan was saying. And we live in a big house with a garden, Lily added. And we never fight, and we always play together. Michael and Grace exchanged a glance, smiling. I think they've already decided for us, Grace whispered. Kids are wiser than adults sometimes. Ethan looked at them and stopped playing. Dad, Grace, are you dating now? Michael and Grace laughed. What do you think about that? Grace asked. Yees! Both children shouted together, running to hug them. Now we're a real family, Lily said happily. And I have a little sister and a mom, Ethan added. Michael hugged all three, feeling a wholeness he'd never experienced before. Yes, he said, looking at Grace. Now we're a real family. 3 months later, Michael was working as the maintenance manager at Grace's company. He had proven himself not only competent but innovative, implementing safety systems that reduced worksite accidents by 80%. Grace, in turn, had drastically cut back her work hours. She discovered that having someone she could trust at the company gave her the freedom to be more present at home. The children were thriving. Lily had become more confident and sociable, while Ethan had gained an emotional stability that Michael had never been able to provide alone. On a Sunday afternoon, they were all at the park where it had all begun. Michael was fixing a new tricycle for Lily. She had deliberately broken the red one the week before, confessing that she wanted an excuse to ask Uncle Michael to fix it one more time. You know what's funny? Grace said, watching Michael work while the children played. What? You really do fix things. You fixed Lily's tricycle. You fixed my relationship with her. You fixed my broken heart. Michael smiled. You fixed a few things too. Like what? You fixed my faith in families. You fixed my belief that I could be loved for who I am. You filled the hole in Ethan's life where a mother should have been. Grace stepped closer and kissed him softly. I think we fixed each other. At that moment, Lily and Ethan approached. Grace, Dad, we wanted to ask you something, Ethan said, holding Lily's hand. What is it? The two adults asked. When are you getting married? Lily asked bluntly. Michael and Grace exchanged glances, laughing. Do you want us to get married? Grace asked. Yes, the children answered in unison. And when do you think it should be? Michael asked. Now, Lily said impatiently. Lily, these things take planning, Grace explained. But why? You already love each other. We already live together sometimes. Ethan already calls me his little sister. And I already call you my heart's dad. What else do you need? Once again, the children's simple logic left the adults speechless. She has a point, Michael said to Grace. She really does. Grace smiled. Michael, will you marry me? Here? Now? In the park where we met? Why not? We have our witnesses, she said, pointing to the children, and the perfect place. Michael knelt right there in the middle of the park. Grace Bennett, will you marry me and build a wonderfully crazy family with these two amazing kids? Yes, Grace shouted, laughing and crying at the same time. The children cheered and clapped with joy. But Dad, where's the ring? Ethan asked. Michael laughed. I haven't bought the ring yet, son. You don't need a ring, Lily said wisely. You need love, and you have plenty of that. It's true, Grace agreed. We have enough love for a lifetime. Michael stood and hugged his new family, Grace, Ethan, and Lily, right there on the same bench where it had all started months ago, when a little girl in a white dress had approached him with a broken red tricycle. Now, he said, looking at the three most important faces in his life, now we're a complete family. Mrs. Margaret, who had been watching the whole scene from a distance, approached with tears in her eyes. David would be proud, she whispered to Grace. You found your way back to happiness. Grace hugged her mother, and Michael found the family he always deserved. 6 months later, Michael and Grace officially married in a simple ceremony at the same park. Lily was the flower girl, carrying petals in her red tricycle, which Michael had fixed once again for the occasion. Ethan was the ring bearer, proud to make official the family his heart had already accepted long ago. The company Bennett & Johnson Builders grew and became known not just for quality, but for safety and social responsibility. Michael implemented training programs for underprivileged youth, teaching technical skills and giving opportunities to those who needed them most. Grace learned to balance work and family, discovering that being present in her children's lives didn't diminish her professional success. On the contrary, it made her more motivated and efficient. Ethan and Lily grew up as true siblings, protecting each other and sharing everything, from toys to dreams for the future. And Michael, the unemployed mechanic who once fixed a broken red tricycle, discovered that sometimes life's greatest blessings come disguised as small problems we need to solve with our hearts. On the 10th anniversary of the day they met, the family returned to the park for a special celebration. Lily, now a 13-year-old preteen, brought the same red tricycle, which Michael had fixed dozens of times over the years whenever she invented a problem as an excuse to spend time with her dad. Ethan, now 18, was preparing to enter engineering school, following in his parents' footsteps in the construction business. But his true passion was teaching underprivileged children at the workshop school Michael had created. "Dad," said Lily, older now, but still affectionate, "thank you for fixing my tricycle that day." "Thank you for letting me fix it," replied Michael, hugging his beloved daughter. "You didn't just fix a tricycle," said Grace, watching her family gathered on the bench where it all began. "You fixed our lives." "And built the most beautiful family there is," Ethan added. Mrs. Margaret, now 80 but still sharp and active, smiled as she watched the four of them. "David always said the best constructions are made with love, patience and dedication. You've built something that will last forever." Michael looked at the red tricycle still standing there, then at Grace, Ethan and Lily. "Yes," he said, his heart overflowing with gratitude. "We built a family that will last forever." And as the sun set over the park, the Johnson Bennett family knew they had found the true meaning of home, not a place where you live, but where you are loved unconditionally. The end of the story. And now, dear listener, tell us what you thought of this story of love and perseverance. Do you believe Michael and Grace made the right decision in building this family? Leave your honest comment about what moved you most in this journey. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss other heartwarming stories.